This week's episode talks about foraging for food, wild edibles. We will give you a brief overview as to what they are and list some different types of things you can harvest out in the wild. This is just going to be a short summary of what can be found. There are many more out there, so I encourage you to look through different books and field guides to see the diversity of plants, trees, and mushrooms that can be found out in nature. People forage for food so they can know where it came from and to connect with nature. It is also sustainable because there's no packaging or containers and shipping like in a store. Also, the food is fresh. One precaution is to be able to correctly identify what you are collecting. There is a saying that goes, "Everything is edible at least once." There are many lookalikes, so if you are unsure what plant it is, do not eat it. Know what parts one can eat and when to harvest. For example, some parts like a leaf may be considered best when young, or berries when they are ripe. Respect what is being harvested. Have a good understanding of how much can be taken and how frequently. If depleted, it will often have a harder time growing in the future. Also, take only what you will use. Make sure the location is safe. Do not put yourself in danger when foraging. Traffic, bad weather, and getting lost are a few examples. Also, do not harvest in areas that use chemicals, such as pesticides, or in areas where pollution can accumulate. Lastly, know the area of where you are harvesting. If you are not on your own property, make sure you have permission to be there, or that it is public land. A good resource is Edible Wild Plants, part of the Peterson Field Guide series. You can see from the different symbols that plants can be used in a variety of different ways. Everything from flower to tea. There are different types of fern depending on where you live. Pictured in the slide is the ostrich fern, one species that you can collect the fiddleheads from. When young, the coiled part is called the fiddlehead, and they unfold with time. The leaves of this species are widest in the middle and taper to the top. Check out the document in the show notes for more information on harvesting and recipes. One can even pickle them. What is often considered undesirable and a weed is not only food for insects such as bees, but can also provide nutrition to people. The dandelion's young leaves can be used in salads and are rich in vitamin A. Flowers can be dipped in a batter and fried, and roots can create a coffee-like beverage. Labrador tea is a species we talked about in the bog ecology episode. Tea can be made from the leaves of this plant. As they tend to grow in bog areas, one needs to be careful to not impact the ecosystem when harvesting. Young leaves of the plantain can be added to a salad or used as a cooked green. As leaves age, they do become stringy. Pictured is a young beaked hazelnut, as an end protrudes like a bird's beak. Nuts are usually ripe in late summer, that is, if animals such as bear and squirrels don't get to them first. It can be made into flour and even candied. Also, it is part of what makes up the popular spread Nutella. Next is the Juneberry, also known as a service berry. These berries can be eaten as a fruit or created into jam. Berries pictured here still have a while until they are ripe. Next is the wild rose. Rose hips, which are the fruit, can be used for making jam. They can also be eaten raw and used in tea. They can be dried and stored for later use. Often the rose hips will last into winter on the plant and can be good survival food as they are packed with vitamin C. There are many other plants, trees, and even mushrooms out there to forage for. Below are just a few other species to check out: cattail, yarrow, clover, and pine tree. Michelle asked, "Can I plant wild edibles in my yard?" That is a good question, and yes, many of these plants that are found in the wild can be bought in places like nurseries and other areas that sell plants. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to us on YouTube and check out the notes below for additional resources such as recipes and ways to help identify and harvest different wild plants. Next week, we are going to talk about curious critters, amphibians and reptiles. We'll see you then. Take care.